will 2025 prove Josh Heupel's ability to evaluate talent out of high school? And I'm going to say yes, because this is going to be, and we're going to break them down offensively. Tennessee's found some great players on defense, and they've recruited them. James Pierce is the most prominent one. But I think most of the recruiting on defense comes from Tim Banks, Rodney Garner, Willie Martinez. I don't think Heupel's involved. Heupel's involved in recruiting on offense. This is likely to be the first year since he took over at Tennessee that a majority of the offensive snaps are taken by players he signed directly out of high school, not via the transfer portal.
I think it's a watershed year. I really do. And if the University of Tennessee doesn't prove to have talent that's at least comparable to Georgia and Alabama, and I don't think they will, then that's troubling. Um, how do they stack up to Kentucky, Florida? Well, they should already be beyond that. And I don't think that they are. So let's go ahead and get to four downs. It's brought to you by Ted Russell Ford Lincoln. And man, this Saturday only, surprise dad with a new ride that roars. Experience top models at Ted Russell Ford Lincoln and celebrate Father's Day in horsepower style. Don't miss your chance to make this Father's Day unforgettable. There are amazing deals. If we can go ahead and share those, I'd greatly appreciate it. And Ted Russell Lincoln, join them in Knoxville, where luxury meets comfort. Discover your next new ride. Amazing dads are in your lives. They deserve an awesome ride. So let's go ahead and get to it. Four downs brought to you by Ted Russell Ford Lincoln.
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
We'll do it, Coop.
Coop here. First down.
All right. First down is this. 2 of 3 likely starting wide receivers were signed by Heupel out of high school. Mike Matthews and Braylon Staley.
Yes.
Tennessee going to have better receiver play than they had this year, than last year? They should, Caleb. But part of that's because Brew McCoy wasn't the same player as he was 2 years ago.
True, but even if Brew McCoy was, Heupel didn't sign Brew out of high school.
True.
And so it wouldn't. This is what I'm talking about. Heupel signed these two out of high school. And so 2 of 3 likely starting wide receivers signed by Heupel out of high school is the big deal here. Mike Matthews and Braylon Staley. And by the way, Chris Brazel's going to be on the other side. Heupel signed him, but he signed Brazel out of Tulane as a transfer. So Matthews and Staley together, that's going to be a big deal. This is a really big test for Heupel if those two work out. And again, there's rumors of Staley alternating time with Boo Carter, but Boo Carter, he also signed out of high school.
Here's another factor to consider.
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
Both running backs signed out of high school, Peyton Lewis and Deshaun Bishop. I'll go ahead and say this from a talent perspective. Love me some Peyton Lewis. And again, we're not talking about production last year by Bishop, who I think surprised a lot of us, me and Caleb included, as productive as he was. And they may have gotten an overachiever. And certainly, I think that Josh Heupel deserves credit for that. But the bottom line is, if you're not uber talented, then you've got an issue. And I think Peyton Lewis is potentially uber talented, but Caleb, I'm not so sure that Deshaun Bishop is. Is this an adequate pair of running backs heading into Josh Heupel's 5th season?
Peyton Lewis and Deshaun Bishop together is it should be, because Deshaun Bishop should be a solid backup, and Peyton Lewis is supposed to be an elite player. He signed out as an elite running back. Now, to Josh Heupel's credit, Dylan Sampson was an All-American last year. He did sign Dylan Sampson out of high school. So there's not as much of a change at running back this year in terms of the offensive weapons. And Josh Heupel deserves a lot of praise for that, okay? And because he found Dylan Sampson when no one else did. Well, not no one, but Dylan Sampson was a 3-star. But Peyton Lewis was a 4-star and more highly touted. So this is another part where, again, both running backs out of high school, one a walk-on in Bishop. This will really test Heupel's evaluating skills.
All right. Along those lines, it kind of harkens back to recruiting a little bit. What did Timothy have to say?
You know how ignorant people say we are a 3-star U, but those 3 stars in JUCO, D2, and D3 still get drafted in the NFL. I mean, Timothy,
I'll still take my chances with 5 stars, and you can have your 5 3-stars.
I get your point on that. But it's a little bit weird with Tennessee history in the last 25 years. They've missed on more 5 stars than they have 3 stars, I feel like.
Okay. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. as we continue 4 Downs, brought to you by Ted Russell Ford and Ted Russell Lincoln. Please hit that like and subscribe button. We appreciate that. If you haven't done that yet, click on the like button. Anybody that throws in a super chat, that goes to Quincy Calhoun's college fund. You're not going to believe 3rd and 4th down. And it's brought to you by Ted Russell Ford Lincoln, East Tennessee's largest volume dealer. You'll absolutely love those guys.
A beacon of hope in a world of high prices. Look to the skies, Knoxville. Super savings is here. Ted Russell Ford is East Tennessee's #1 volume Ford dealer. Employee pricing is here. You pay what we pay on all new Ford models. Come see the super dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike.
Mays here. 3rd down.
Oh, did you hear Coop? Were you able to hear Coop?
Yeah, I heard him somewhat. Play him again.
Center Cooper Mays here. 3rd down.
Thank you, Coop. All right, 3rd down, Caleb, is this. And that is at least 2 of 5 likely starting offensive linemen signed out of high school. David Sanders would be 1. Interior offensive lineman Max Anderson, William Satterwhite, or Sham Umarov would be the other, would be Heupel guys. So, listen, we all like to talk about the skill position players, but if Tennessee can't recruit the big uglies along with Georgia and Alabama that have an advantage because of in-state talent, they're not going to compete with those teams. I will say this. It's a credit to Heupel's coaching that they beat Alabama twice because they're not as talented. I think we would agree on that. But your thoughts on the offensive line recruiting to this point by Heupel? I would say that best case scenario, we think Sanders is going to be really good. But do I like depending on a freshman at tackle? Not really. 1 interior offensive lineman. I've said that I'm really high on William Satterwhite to replace Cooper Mays. I think Satterwhite is a lot like Mays, and he'll be good. Max Anderson, not high on. Sham Umarov, sort of high on. That's not a glowing endorsement, Caleb.
No, and now let's bring this up. Heupel has yet to have an offensive lineman that he signed out of high school start for him. And he's going to have at least 2 this year. So, I mean, a dramatic change because David Sanders is already locked in at right tackle. I can just tell you right now, that's why Larry Johnson entered the transfer portal. Okay, David Sanders committed a certain amount of NIL money, and you're going to start a guy that you paid that much NIL money to. So David Sanders is locked in at right tackle. Lance Hurd's at left tackle. He's a transfer. On the interior, Sam Pendleton and Wendell Moe could both start. They're both transfers, but that still leaves 1 person he signed out of high school that would have to start. And that means at least 2, Sanders and one of those other guys, will be the starter. And you're talking, like I said, Max Anderson, William Satterwhite, or Sham Umarov. By the way, could be 3 to 4 that he signed out of high school that become starters this year. We don't know how good Sam Pendleton and Wendell Moe are going to be for Tennessee. You told me earlier in the year that you think Wendell Moe is just a body.
Yep. Okay, so let me ask you this. I'll talk about a couple of the transfers. Do you believe a program in general, perhaps Tennessee, perhaps not, can be primarily transfer portal based and win a national championship?
I do. I'm going to save that. I'm going to save my take on that for when we discuss your takes on Josh Heupel's recruiting.
Okay. Because I'll go ahead and tell you I don't.
Down.
Oh.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. 4th down.
All right. Thanks, Coop. Everybody on the second team will be signed out of high school by Heupel. Here are some names to be mindful of: Ethan Davis, Jake Merklinger, who I guess will be second team. We'll see. And Travis Smith Jr., Rodarius Jackson at wide receiver. Now, I don't think Ethan Davis is a second team player. He may end up being a second team player depending on what happens at tight end health. But I don't think he feels like a second teamer. I think he's going to be really good. Travis Smith Jr. needs to pan out and be really good. But when you look at the second team, what do you make of what Heupel has brought in?
Well, this gets to my point on the whole, a majority of the offense will be out of high school, because here's why. From what I just named, Dave, when I just named you the starters of everybody, I broke down at least 2 offensive linemen, 2 of the 3 wide receivers, and and the starting running back, right? That's 5 of 11 starters are already players he signed out of high school, right?
Yes.
That's a minimum. A minimum of 5 of 11 starters are players he signed out of high school. If everybody on the second team is also players he signed out of high school, well, then you know for a fact that there's a 100% chance that the majority of offensive snaps is going to be taken by players he signed out of high school, because 5 of 11, but then you're going 16 of 22 for a 2-deep depth chart in that situation. And at that point, you're going to see way more offensive snaps taken. I named all these guys to say Travis Smith or Darius Jackson. One of those guys is going to be the first receiver out off the list, because Brazel, Staley, and Matthews are the starters. Again, I brought up Boo Carter in the slot earlier. Again, Boo Carter was signed out of high school too. So one of the wideouts will be Travis Smith or Darius Jackson. It won't be Amari Jefferson, by the way, for those asking, because Amari Jefferson needs a year to recover from an injury. So he's not playing this year. He's going to be a starter next year.
Great.
So
the transfer from Alabama.
From Alabama, exactly. On the offensive line, I mentioned Satterwhite, Anderson, and who's the third? Sham Umarov. I'm telling you guys right now, Satterwhite, Anderson, Sham Umarov. Just would like to point out that while only one of them might start, the other two will definitely be on the second team, and the offensive line rotation has to go at least 7 deep of a regular rotation.
Timothy's super chat.
Then fire the coach, because 5 stars want a pro style type offensive schemes, not the veer and shoot that doesn't translate to the NFL. I mean, Timothy, not everybody doesn't want that.
Well, I think that's the next evolution of college football. I think it is showing prospects that you can prepare them for the NFL, because I think the money is not going to be completely level. You pointed that out. We debated that the other day, but I do think it's going to be leveled off somewhat. Against all super chats, go to Quincy Calhoun, who just turned 1 year old. Is college fun. So Caleb has promised not to gamble it away.